board members. I'm going to have Yashi share a slide right now that just shows the volunteer current board members of SpEdPAC. Just acknowledging the time they give volunteering, because as everyone may recall, SpEdPAC members, we're all families and parents of special ed students, and we do this for the love of our special ed students to make sure they're serviced well. So our officers are myself, Roxy Harvey, our chair, Charlie Kim, who was doing interpretation, and our treasurer, Kelsey, and secretary, Sharon, along with our at-large board members, Edith Bazil, Kim Daly-Emery, Lisa Jean Graff, Bethany Moffey, Jack Sinnott, Daniel Tierney, and our alternative board members, Latia Grooms and Bessie Maher. So we just want to acknowledge and also encourage anyone on the call to always think about coming forth, whether to be a SpEdPAC school representative or board members, because it really helps when we can all work together to do the work. So you can stop sharing that slide. Thank you so much. So the next thing we're going to start with is transportation. I'm going to introduce Delavern Stanislaus, who is the director of transportation. She's going to give us a brief update about transportation. If you have generic questions about transportation, you can put it in the chat or raise your hand after she's done speaking, and we will call on you. If it is a child-specific concern, then we'll give you the option to go in a breakout room and see, and she can advise you on if there's something that she can work on or who you should contact. But we just want to be mindful of generic questions will be here in this space for everyone. But if anything with a child specific or something you want to just check in with the transportation director or someone from the Office of Special Ed, in this particular case, it would be Heidi Cahoon-McCoon, who can, even if she's not your school's assistant director, she can support you in either helping you find out who you would need to contact regarding your concern. So those two individuals will be available in breakout rooms, and you put in the chat and we'll make sure you just get there to get that child specific help. But for now, we are going to start with getting the transportation update. So Del, we really appreciate you being here tonight to support our family. So thank you.
Thank you, Roxy. Good night, everyone. My name is Delavern Stanislaus. I'm the Director of Transportation for Boston Public Schools. Thank you, Yashi, for sharing the slides. So I'm going to give a brief update on where we are with transportation, with the transportation operation as of today, Thursday, September 22nd. So far, from the start of the summer until now, our routing team has routed over 21,000 students on 590 vehicles throughout the operation. This includes over 6,000 special education students to door-to-door transportation and over 2,100 students that have monitors required on the IEP. Over the summer, in late August, we negotiated a moratorium with the drivers union on letters of agreement A and B to give us the opportunity to route some of our out of district door-to-door special education students on 7D vans instead of buses, to ensure that we're getting buses, to ensure that all of these students were getting access to education, and also to add some slack in our fleet system. Due to traffic, Orange Line shutdown and the increase in traffic across the city, these buses go out and they do one trip daily, and we can't really re-optimize them in the fleet. So far, our performance since school started, our AM on-time performance has averaged 78%. On the first day of school, our on-time performance started off at 50%, but we've been consistently this past week up to about 85 to 88% daily. And our team is continuing to work to add slack in the system to improve our on-time performance. 99.3% of our scheduled trips have been covered so far this school year. That's an improvement from last school year. Last school year, 2 to 3% of our trips were dropped daily. It's not where we need to be. Our team is working in close collaboration with TransDev to continue our driver hiring efforts. we're running a driver recruitment campaign. We're going to continue that throughout the school year to recruit and hire as much drivers as we can. So far, since May of 2022, we've hired over 87 drivers. 55 of them we hired without a CDL license, and we're putting them through, we're actually paying to get them their CDL license. And so far that has, we've had some success with that, and it's going to continue to do that. So we're going to continue to hire anyone on the streets that's interested in being a driver. We implemented in collaboration with TransDev a CDL training program. So we're going to continue. We have 34 drivers that are still in training and estimated to be on the road by the end of October. Anytime a trip is uncovered, our customer service team communicates that information to schools, and families receive a robocall letting them know that a bus is uncovered. And just to add some clarification surrounding like our bus coverage, if we have a bus that's uncovered at any time during the day, families get a robocall notifying them of an uncovered bus. However, that does not mean that we will not send a bus. That just means that when we have a bus cleared up somewhere in the system, we'll send a bus right away to pick up those students. An update on our monitor coverage. Monitor coverage continues to be a more persistent challenge. However, the city recently reached an agreement with the bus monitors union. So we have a tentative agreement with the union, and we've gotten some operational reforms, better pay and sign-on and retention bonuses for our monitors. So our team is going to launch a recruitment campaign to hire more monitors into the system. Also, for our on the bus monitor team, we've expanded that team and added 2 positions, 2 program director positions. That's going to support with additional training those 2 program directors would support with training for bus monitors across schools on different student disabilities. The city also removed a residency requirement for monitors to facilitate recruitment, so we can hire individuals outside of the city of Boston going forward. If families need support with transportation at any time, our call center is open from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Our phone number for the call center is 617-635-9520. You can also contact us through our support portal, which is on our website at bostonpublicschools.org/transportation, and/or email us at schoolbus@bostonpublicschools.org. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'm just going to first start with some of the questions that were thrown in the chat before I call on some of the hands that are up. So one of the first questions that came in was basically explaining how, unfortunately, an individual's child was being bullied on this bus by not just students, but also the bus driver. So I guess, Delavern, the question would be, what do the families do when their child is being bullied on the school bus, and when it's also occurring, is being done by a driver or a bus monitor?
That's a good question. If bullying of any kind is happening on a bus by a bus driver or a bus monitor, a family should immediately report it to their child's assigned school and transportation. And our team, our transportation assistant director of customer relations and school support, and our operations team would immediately follow up with the contractor TransDev and also the monitors unit assistant director to ensure that, one, these employees are being removed from buses and going through our training processes to ensure that that does not continue to happen.
Thank you. So they have to first notify the school and transportation and go from there. So thank you.
Ms.
Another
Harvey,
question.
can I add to that?
Yes,
Hey,
please.
Heidi. You also want to notify the school coordinator of special education to reconvene the team. If bullying's happening, that's something that we have to address through the IEP team and make sure that supports are put in place as part of Massachusetts state law. So you will also want to let the school know and let your coordinator of special education know.
Excellent point, because frequently there's a bullying plan in place, but people don't think about it also in relation to the bus, and the school day for our children begins from the time they enter that bus and heading to school. So absolutely. And then I think you touched base a little bit on this. The question was about hiring more bus monitors and the rollout, basically. Basically, how quickly are you trying to get bus monitors hired, and what are the vacancies with bus monitors as far as how many?
Yep. So on the bus monitor side, we're looking to hire about 100 bus monitors, and it's ongoing right now, right? So we're currently hiring. However, the process is slower because one, the current pay structure that's in place for bus monitors. Currently, the average monitor makes about $18,000 a year. However, with the tentative agreement that we have on the bus monitor contract, we've been able to get some increased wages and lift the residency requirement for bus monitors. I think that we will be able to recruit more monitors like within the next couple of weeks. We're scheduling the ratification vote is being scheduled for October 1st at the moment. So we're looking at like getting this off the ground like quickly.
Thank you. And along that line with the driver shortages, the question is being also asked about as far as late transportation, right? So, you know, for example, the bus there's no bus available, so there has to be either a late bus or someone has to bring the child home. Someone expressed the child's coming home 2 to 3 hours after the school days ended because there was no coverage. So even in those circumstances, and I will add in the question about reimbursement for those families who have the capacity to go pick up their child. What is the current status of families being reimbursed, whether for mileage and gas or Uber and Lyft rides, when there is no bus and they have to transport their child?
If a bus is uncovered, right, our team always work to find a backup bus to get to families. Understandably, sometimes we cannot find the bus right away, right? It's according to like if we have any standby drivers available. In those cases, if families are looking for reimbursement for Uber rides, et cetera, that they have because they had to get themselves to schools to pick up students, their families can reach out to the Office of Special Education. Special Education usually works with our business office to ensure that families are reimbursed.
I can add to that. Please reach out to your AD and we will be able to share the BPS vendor process to facilitate that. I'm looking for the vendor process now. I'm hoping to put in the chat, but I might not be able to find it in an expedited fashion.
Thank you. And I do see a message from one of our interpreters for us to slow down. So I want to be mindful of and acknowledge that also. I see a lot of hands up. So is that two eyes? Is it Leah or Elia? I'm going to ask you to unmute to ask your question. Torna.
Sí. Así, tengo una pregunta. Los conductores de buses y los monitores están capacitados para tratar con niños especiales o, en mi caso, autistas.
And I just need our Spanish interpreters to support her with asking her question, please.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you. Del, did you hear the question?
Sorry, I actually did not.
Okay, so the in the English channel, the interpreter interpreted the question was, Are the monitors and drivers trained for students and riders with special needs, specifically students with autism and any other needs?
That's a good question. Our monitors go through training once a year, like during the summertime. There's a large monitor training where the Office of Special Education, Social and Emotional Wellness train our monitors. It's a mandatory training for monitors. However, I want to add something to that. So over the past couple of months, I launched a reorg in the monitors unit and added 2 program directors position to support with ongoing training, because I do think that our monitors can benefit on more one-to-one training, and also bringing our monitors into doing in-school training with school staff, so they better understand student disabilities. And also, I think it's a thing also, like one student, like an autistic student at one school, right? Each students are individuals, right? And their disabilities may present different things. I think it's important for our monitors to understand and also be a part of, like, not just like a body on the bus with a student, but they're also aligned with like schools, understand how our one-to-one paras and teachers are supporting students, and having some program directors that's like assigned by region that can get bus monitors into school for ongoing training. So those positions are approved and posted, and we're working to hire them as soon as possible to get them in to support and train, support with like more training, and also not just yearly training, but ongoing monthly training for bus monitors. On the driver end, the drivers does not go through specific special education training on student disabilities. During the school year, there are some schools where our drivers that require like that, in a joint collaboration with TransDev, that would reach out and they'll set up trainings for where our drivers go into schools. We're looking to expand that program a little bit more, and TransDev is very open to that, getting more drivers into schools to get more training.
Thank you. We have 16 hands up for transportation questions. And we have our speaker about basic rights, and we don't have any more time for transportation. Delavern, if you don't mind, we'll actually go in the breakout room and really support these families that have their hands up. We're going to transition them into a room with you. And because there's so many, perhaps Heidi can also go in and support you with answering, especially if there's any reimbursement questions that the Office of Special Ed is going to be the one that's supporting that. So that we make sure every transportation question that families took the time to be here tonight, we want to make sure that they can get the support they need, or at least a question answered of how to connect with the right person. So what we'll do is I'll have Charlie start to move people into the breakout room, or you can join the room, I believe, Charlie, if I'm not mistaken. Is it set up so they can join the room right now?
Yes. So anybody who has a follow-up question or wasn't able to ask their question, they can join breakout room 1. And Del, you can also join that room, and then Heidi, you can also join that room. I think that if somebody needs an interpreter, they're going to have to put in the chat and possibly request the interpreter join the breakout room too.
Yes. So please feel free to join breakout room 1. Heidi and Del will go there so that you can get those transportation questions answered. And then when you have your question answered, you're welcome to join back here with our basic rights presentation. So we're going to transition to that and begin that now. So thank you for your patience. So first, Joanne, thank you for your patience also, because as you can see, there's lots of questions about our families and concerns. And I'm sure some of this presentation you're going to do is going to help answer some of that also. So I want to introduce Joanne Pino, who works for Massachusetts Advocates for Children, MAC, who also is a support agency that can help families, and she will share that. But the floor is completely yours, Joanne. Thank you.
Great. And just to double check, I have till 8:30, is that correct?
Sorry, I muted myself, but yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Okay, hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. And there's, as much as, the basic rights is not a very long training, there's still a lot of information to share. And I know there may be questions, so I want to get right to this, but I do want to briefly just introduce who MAC is, just in case people might not know that. So Mass Advocates for Children is a nonprofit organization that works with families that have children with disabilities. And we work in a way that we try to get supports and services for the family through the IEP process. So we have a helpline, which there'll be the phone number at the back of this presentation. If you need to get help to talk to somebody about issues you may be having, if your child is having a difficult time, and we're happy to be there to help, support you and give you some suggestions of next steps for your child and for you to take to help your child. So MAC has been around 50 years. It's been a long time. Hugh B. Jones is our founder. He's an amazing man and is still working for families in Boston as we speak. And so we're very lucky that he was there to create this organization that can help so many people. So I'm going to get into the presentation so that we can cover all the topics, all the information. If you have any questions, again, you can use the chat or raise your hands, and we'll try to get to as many questions as possible. So today we are going to talk about the basic rights in special education, and we'll talk about the process of how special education works and the timelines and timeframes of how they should be working. And some of you are been here for a while and already on IEP, so I understand that this might be just some information that you can use to share to other people, because if you learn something new and share it with other people, then more people learn this information and they can help their children that way as well. So thank you for being here. So for today, we're going to talk about the workshop overview right now. And there's two realities: institutional racism and the fallout from COVID that are playing a big role in education at this time. And so we're going to be discussing this as we go through the presentation. And we're going to be talking about the importance of parent and student participation in the special education process. And we're also going to talk about the steps for special education and what the process is for that, and timelines as well. And we're also going to talk about when you disagree with the school district and what you need to do about that and the steps to take for that. And then there's going to be resources at the end of the slides that will be there for you. And I can share a read-only document with Roxy after this, so she can share it with you families that are here. She can send it out to you all after the presentation. So two key points right now. One is about systemic racism and implicit bias that has been a huge issue for years and years and years, but has been a lot more in the open more now recently, due to everything that happened with COVID, everything that happened with George Floyd, and how that affected, everybody involved, but including our children that were so traumatized by those events. So, systemic racism, it infiltrates the lives of students and their interactions between the school staff and parents. And it's crucial for the students to be able to get the help they need if they are, experience any type of trauma due to any
Hi,
racism
Joanne.
or implicit bias. Yes.
Hi, it's Charlie. Do you mind slowing down a little bit? The interpreters are
Sure.
are trying to keep up. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And please, if I do go fast again, please interrupt me. I definitely sometimes lose myself in passion here. So, so for example, 63% of Black students with autism in Boston are in substantially separate placements compared to their white counterparts at 34%. So that is a big difference, and that gap needs to be closed. All our kids should be being able to be educated in the least restricted environment, and we want to make sure that that happens for all our students. And then we need to talk about COVID recovery. Although COVID hopefully is almost over, students have suffered a lot of trauma due to COVID and the pandemic. If they've lost some people they've loved due to COVID, or some of their situations have changed in their social interactions and their social networks have changed. That has been a big issue for a lot of students, that, you know, because all of a sudden all these kids were working outside together on teams together, sports teams, on different drama clubs, and then all of a sudden school shut down and they lost all those interactions. And that has been a huge issue for a lot of our kids. And it has caused—
Joanne, another reminder, speed.
Okay, so sorry. It has caused a huge mental health national emergency across the country, this issue. So we're going to be addressing some of these. Chronic absenteeism has been an issue because of COVID as well. And so 26.3% of students with disabilities have been absent from school, chronic absenteeism, compared to 17% for all students statewide. So again, that is a large gap that we need to work on to be able to close. And for Black male students, 3.6 times as likely to be placed in an emotional impairment substantially separate program compared to other students. So again, we want to close these gaps so all our students are working and learning together instead of in substantially separate placements. And hopefully with this information that we're going to provide with you today, you'll be able to help to advocate for that to happen for your child. So you as a parent are so important. And as a matter of fact, in the law, they put parents first as one of the most important part of the team. You know your child the best, and it's so important that you speak up for them. The law does say that parents are equal team members, although again, I feel that they should be a little bit higher than equal, but they have as much say as the school district about what should be happening with your child. And so it's so important for parents to be able to participate in their child's education, that the law does say that all information, all written letters, forms, and all meetings should be in the parent's primary language. And we know through our helpline calls that doesn't always happen. So it's really important for you to be able to advocate for those things to happen. If you're getting IEPs in English and not in your language, you should absolutely be able to reach out to the school and ask for that information in your language. Anything that the school does or provides to your child needs to have your permission first. So what this means is the schools cannot stop any type of programming or services without your permission. So keep that in mind as we go through this presentation, because that's really one of your strongest rights as a parent, to be able to say, no, I don't want you to stop, for example, maybe some ABA services. I still think they need these services. And if you don't agree with them as the parent, then the school cannot stop those services till there's more meetings and things are worked out. And also any type of placement that the school is going to propose for your child, that again, you as the parent need to say, yes, that is okay to do that. And you do have a right to say no to placements as well. So keep that in mind as we discuss this, and think about how that would be playing out for all those children that are in out of district placements when they could be learning in district with their peers, and how you can work to get them back as with the team. So for basic legal protections for immigrant families, there are some rights for immigrant families too. All students have a right to a free and appropriate public education, including, and this also applies to immigrant students. So all services that people that are from here are eligible for, your students are eligible for as well. And there are laws that cover this. We have federal law, which all states have to follow. And if you have a state law that is similar to a federal law, it cannot be less than the federal law. It can be stronger than the federal law. And in Massachusetts, we do have some stronger laws that help protect our kids with disabilities. But the federal law that covers special education is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. We call it IDEA. We love our acronyms, so we have a lot of those. And if there's some acronyms I use and you don't understand, please ask away, and I hopefully will be able to explain what they are. And then we have the Civil Rights Acts of 1964 as well, that also protect students with disabilities. And then, as I said, we do have some state laws. And then we have, so under the state laws, we have the state special education laws, chapter 766, as well as the learning opportunities.
And Joanne, I'm going to recommend a breath just to slow you down a little bit.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm trying to
Thank
talk
you.
slow. I'm trying.
Yeah, I
to
see.
talk slow.
No, I understand you're passionate. I want to make sure everyone can take some of
Yeah.
this in. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to talk slow too, and I'm still going too fast. I'm so sorry. So in the learning opportunities for our Kids Act, also known as the Look Act, is the act that will help fund bilingual education. So that's the law that would cover any, the services that your child should be getting in their language as well. So there is special education services. And if your child has a disability, they are entitled to be able to get their education in their language as well. And that is the law that would be looked at if that's something that you have a problem with the school. So when the primary language of the parent is not English, there needs to be interpreters at the meeting. And you in Boston seems to be amazing and be able to get interpreters to be able to be in evening meetings. So I'm hoping that they also are able to get the interpreters, trained interpreters, qualified interpreters at the meetings during the day as well. But that is the right of all parents that their language is not English. They are entitled to have a qualified interpreter at all their meetings. And as I had said earlier, all IEP evaluations and other communications from the school should also be in the parent's primary language. And if the school is not following that law, you could file a complaint with the Department of Education. And you can also call Max Helpline and we can see if we can help as well. But those are things that this law is actually a very important law because it is so important for parents to be able to actively participate in their students' education. And this is one way for parents that don't speak English to be able to participate by having qualified interpreters at the meeting. So now we're going to be talking about the special education process and the steps that are included. And we're going to break down these steps and talk a little bit about each of them at a time. And again, please, if I am going fast, remind me to slow down. I'm fine with that. And I apologize if you're missing anything. So now we're going to talk about the referral for special education. So a parent well, it's not even just a parent, but a parent or anybody that knows your child can request that your child be tested for special education. So what happens is the referral is made either by you, the parent, or somebody else that knows the child. And the school then has 5 school days to send the parent the paperwork to sign for the evaluations to begin. Okay, so that 5 school days, that's really important. Because that starts the process. Once you sign the paperwork and get it back to the school, the process begins and the days start to count down by then. So what happens is once they receive that request for the evaluation back, the school has 30 school days to complete the evaluations that you, the parent, have requested. Okay, and so asking for evaluations, it's unfortunately a process that does take some time. So things aren't going to happen right away. And as much as
Joanne, I'm going to recommend you pause after each sentence. And I think that's what's going to help you.
Okay.
I do.
Okay. Sorry. So once the evaluations are made, again, the school has those 30 school days to do those evaluations for the child. So the types of evaluations that can be asked for. So there's a big, I didn't change my slide, sorry. So the required assessments include an educational assessment is something that the school has to do once the referral is made. They have to test a child in all areas related to the child's disability. Okay, and that also may include an observation of the child while they're in school. The parents can ask for psychological or a home assessment, as well as a health assessment, and an assistive technology assessment if language or the student is having difficulty speaking or does not speak at all. Excuse me. A transition in functional vocational assessment is also an assessment that needs to be completed when the student is at age 14 years of age. And I already mentioned the observation that can be done in home, in the community, or in the school, depending on the age of the child. And again, I can't stress enough that all assessments must be in the language that the student speaks. So if it is most likely to yield the most accurate findings regarding the student's strengths and deficits. So if the student does speak some English, but their main language is, say, Spanish, then the test should be done for that student in Spanish. So as I said, the testing must be done in a language that is most likely to accurately assess the student. And the testing must also be done in a non-discriminatory manner, okay? All students identified as English language learners must be tested yearly for English proficiency, as well as any other testing for special education that is requested. And the evaluation reports must be provided in the primary language to the families. So what can you do if you disagree with the school's evaluation? So there's a couple of things that you can do if you disagree, and there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. So the first thing to do if you disagree with the school evaluation is to get an independent evaluation. So again, there's a couple of ways to do that as well, but you can request that the school district pay for the independent evaluation if they had recently done one themselves. You can pay for it yourself if you can do that, or you can go through your insurance as well. So those are different ways that you can get an independent evaluation for your child. And you can call a helpline and we can give you names of different places that may be able to provide you with these evaluations, but most of the major hospitals do them as well. There are some special protections for families that are low income and that the school would be able to pay for an independent evaluation. That's on a sliding fee scale. So families of like 4 can make over $84,000 a year and get free evaluations by the school if, like I said, they had recently done one. And if you have any questions about this, we can get some sample letters. There's sample letters on our website that can help you request these things through the school. You can request the school pay for the outside evaluation. And you can also get, and those are on our website in different languages. And you can also get a letter or sample letter on requesting an assessment to begin with the school. So before I go to the next one, I don't know if you want to stop here for a minute and see if there's any questions, or would you prefer me to continue doing the presentation and wait till the end for the questions, Roxy?
No, I'd like to check in because I also want to see if any of those hands have child-specific questions.
Sure.
That
Okay.
they need assistance going to a breakout room and they aren't able to move themselves. So, Aura, I will start with you and I'll ask you to unmute. You should see a message asking. Go ahead. Aura, are you able to talk currently?
Or please join the English room if you're not in interpretation.
Yo creo que me está hablando a mí. Bueno, mi pregunta es para el transporte. No es mi pregunta, no es que yo he tenido muchos problemas con el transporte. me gustaría que por favor, que cuando especialmente hablen en mi idioma, cuando yo pido, es muy frustrante después de esperar 40, 50 minutos en línea, que vuelven y le cuelguen la llamada y luego le respondan tan groseramente a uno. Entonces, me gustaría que por favor, sabemos que si tienen problemas con los choferes, porque a mi hijo supuestamente lo recogen a las 6:34, un bus a veces viene a buscarlo a las 10:30 de la mañana. Entonces, pero como me dijo a mí las que responden, ¿no? Que ni aunque yo hablara con el presidente, eso no cambiaba y que es mi problema cómo mandaba a mi hijo a la escuela. Pienso que no es la forma de hablarnos, porque especialmente cuando uno tiene un hijo autista o que necesita ayuda, ¿verdad? Él no comprende por qué el bus no viene a buscarlo. Y es muy difícil. Yo vivo un poco lejos de la escuela. Yo vivo en East Boston y mi hijo va hasta Charlestown, que cuando yo pago un taxi me cobra de $45 para buscarlo. Entonces, y soy una persona que por ahora no puedo trabajar por condición médica. Entonces es muy difícil hacerle comprender a él por qué no viene el bus. Y cuando yo hablo, pues lo tratan más de esa manera. Entonces, sí me gustaría,
Aura,
pues.
let me pause you for a moment because I want to make sure Renee,
Está bien.
the Spanish interpreter,
Gracias.
is here to. Oh, you got it? Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, Aura, proceed. Aura?
No, es solamente que yo comprendo la situación, pero a veces la frustración de uno, ¿me entienden? No gana uno nada cuando uno habla buscando por una pregunta, ¿verdad? Si va a haber un chofer o no. Y le responden de esa manera. Pues uno entiende que es un trabajo de todo, ¿verdad? Pero es muy difícil cuando le responden a uno de esa manera. Eso es todo y muchísimas gracias. Y gracias por interpretarlo y hacerlo mejor. Muchísimas gracias.
Yes.
Roxy, I don't know if you can hear me, but we can't hear the interpreter if he's speaking.
So I get the gist of it. Let me make sure my thing didn't drop off my channel.
Yep.
So
Roxy's transportation. Do you want me?
Right, it's transportation. So because Renee's here with us for basic rights, I just want to touch base that if Yashi in the transportation line?
She is. Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll send Aura I'll assign Aura to the breakout room.
Thank you. And I'm just going to remind people that child-specific questions we're really going to use in the breakout rooms because it's just not enough time, to be honest with you. If you want to email us later or we'll get you to the right person to be able to file a complaint or connect with the right person to help resolve the issues. But child-specific questions is very difficult to get to and get through the presentation so everyone can get the information they need. So I will check in with others. And if you can keep the question really brief too. Letitia, you should see a prompt asking you to unmute. So she may have stepped away. iPhone Day Carry. Okay, I'm going to keep moving.
Disculpe,
Okay, go
me
ahead.
puse para informarle a la señora que hablara un poquito más despacio. No tengo preguntas. Excúsame.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Gary. Yes, thank you. And Lisa.
Hello. I have a couple of questions, but I want to ask just one question now in front of everybody. Can the school have BPS outside counsel attend an IEP meeting? I'm a special education advocate. I'm working with a family in Charlestown. I also live in Boston. And this is a first for me where a school is saying, well, I want to have outside counsel attend. I want to have Boston Public School outside counsel attend. Joanne, what are your thoughts on that?
So, you know, they have to give the parent an opportunity to find an attorney as well. So I don't think they should be doing that if the parent doesn't have an attorney. That's my opinion. But if they need to have, and if they need to have an attorney, if they parents want to have this meeting, then they should be able to postpone the meeting, reschedule it, and for the parents to be able to find an attorney. But again, this is concerning for me because it sets up a two-tier system if the parent can't afford to get an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And so they might have to then find somebody from, you know, legal aid or something like that. Which is not always easy as well.
Okay, yeah, it's concerning to me because there's bodies of case law on this where it's simply not done because it makes it contentious and it's intimidating for the student.
And sets up that two-tier system of people that can afford an attorney can then get one. So
Exactly.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you. So my other questions I'll do in the breakout room. Thank you.
Thank you. Elaine.
Hi, I just had a quick question. As far as the referral for in the eval, I have two children, both BPS. One is on the spectrum, autism spectrum. The eval went great. Everything was done perfectly for him. My other child, I've been kind of going back and forth with her elementary school. She's in 4th grade now. I think I've brought this up in 1st grade. I believe she might have ADHD. I've been told by the coordinator, the special education coordinator, we've had meetings. I started having meetings like in 2nd grade with her 2nd grade teacher at the time. They kept telling me that the doctor, the pediatrician, has to give me either a diagnosis or has to be the one that sends me for the evaluation. Then I've talked to the pediatrician and he tells me, no, that if I, as the parent, I basically just have to write a letter asking Boston Public for the evaluation through the special education department.
Joanne, let's let Elaine, let's let Joanne answer that component of it, because I think that some of that's also going to be covered in her presentation, but I'll let her answer that component about how you can request evaluation without that. Yes.
Right. So you absolutely can request an evaluation as the parent, and we have sample letters on our website that you can use to be able to make that request. And you do not need to have a prior diagnosis to be able to get services. If your child is not, if you feel your child is struggling, you absolutely can make that request. I mean, that's basically the simple answer. That and I don't know why they're telling you can't. You absolutely have the right to do so.
Thank you. And Marilyn.
Hello. My son has autism spectrum and selective mutism. And I would like to know if he doesn't talk in public or in school. Out of my house, he doesn't talk at all. And I'm still having problem on the school. And he's been on the same school since he was 3 years old. What can I do about it?
So I think, Marilyn, to a child-specific question like that, they're going to need to talk more about what's going on with your child. And I think at the end, Joanne has a lot of resources she is going to share that will help you connect individually too. So when you guys, some of the questions about what's specifically going on with your child, please remember that this is an overview, but she is going to definitely share her contact and also the other resources that can help the child specific to get into the detail that's needed to really support some of these questions.
Yeah, and no, I am going to be doing that as well, but just so that you know that, you know, you can call our helpline, we can talk to you, but also, you know, you need to be able to get backup documentation that supports what your concerns are. And if you have that from your doctors, that's wonderful. And you can, you know, ask for a team meeting to talk about it, or bring an advocate and or attorney if that's what it takes.
And we'll take the last two before we have, let Joanne continue. Galaxy A02S. You should see a prompt asking you to unmute. If not, then we will jump to Cecilia.
Hi.
Hola,
Hola, buenas noches.
One moment, okay. Galaxy, go ahead.
Soy Stephanie. Sí, mi pregunta es si en los buses que transportan los niños de educación especial andan cámaras o algo, porque mi hijo, así como mi hijo, él tiene autismo, él es autista, y en veces él llora o se desespera, y yo me he fijado que siempre anda el chofer y otra persona atrás, una mujer. Bueno, ok. Y muchas veces he visto gestos así un poco raros, como que no tuvieran mucha paciencia. Entonces, esa es mi pregunta, si tal vez andan cámaras ahí por cualquier cosa, porque me da como temorcito que tal vez me lo vayan a tratar mal o me lo vayan a sentar fuerte en el asiento o algo así. Y él no me puede decir qué es lo que le hacen, porque él no puede hablar. Él no habla todavía, tiene 4 años y no habla todavía.
Renee?
Ok, gracias.
Okay, so I will say, I know from personal experience that buses do have cameras on them. I don't know if all of them. So what I would recommend, Stephanie, is that you go into the breakout room 1. Joshi is there, who does speak Spanish and can also translate for you in that room to get that address. It doesn't, so that you can ask about the cameras, because I don't know if 100% of them have them, but you are correct that there are some cameras on some of the buses. And Cecilia, I had unmuted you earlier, but
Yeah, it's okay.
started.
My question was if there's a platform that we can access for the individual plan. Like if there's a way we can access a platform so we can see what's going on the day-to-day with our child.
So you're not talking about a platform to just see the IEP. You want to see that on Monday, Thursday, September 22nd, your child received speech. This happened today. You're talking about, does BPS have a platform like that that parents can access?
Yeah, so I can see what's going on and like notes that are taken, etc.
Right. So from my understanding, so some people, like my child's IEP has a communication log, a daily communication log. So you can always bring that up during an IEP meeting or just send it a post. You know, you'd like to know what's going on, keep track of services or if there's other issues that you're concerned about. But there isn't a platform that we can log into to see what they've received right now. But if you have concerns, you should definitely bring it up to the coordinator of special ed at the school. And perhaps a daily communication log would resolve that. It can be digital. It doesn't have to be a notebook. I have a digital one that's through Google, just Google Docs.
Okay,
Sounds good. Thank you.
Cecilia, I'd like to add to that, if I may, is just to let you know that you have a right to observe your child in the classroom. Either you or you can have an evaluation that has an observation as part of it. So you have a right to have like a doctor come in and observe your child, or a BCBA or a neuropsychological doctor to come in and observe your child's classroom to make sure that, to find out, say, for instance, if there were behaviors happening and what might be causing those behaviors. So you have a right to go and observe a classroom. You would have to set that up with the special education department, though.
Oh, okay, I thought that changed because of COVID.
No.
I asked in the previous year and they denied it because of COVID.
No,
they are doing observations. We have families that have gone in for observation. So yes, it is occurring now.
All right, thank you so much.
So, all right, Jessica, last question, go for it.
Hi, I came in late, but in regards to BPS transportation, did you mention there's another room for this, or?
Yes, breakout room 1. If you move into breakout room 1, there's the transportation director answering various questions. If you can't move into it, then Charlie will move you into breakout room 1. And Joanne, thank you.
Okay. And before we move on to the second step of the team meeting step, I wanted to actually remind people that you can ask for an evaluation a little bit early if you feel you need to. If your child has maybe regressed, or your child hasn't progressed as much as you wanted, and it's getting close to that 3-year evaluation, you can also make a request and ask the school to do that evaluation a little bit earlier, so that you can get information to help them sooner. So just keep that in mind too, as you're going to advocate for your child. So now we're going to talk about the team meeting and what the reason is for the team meeting. So we talked about the referral. You or a doctor, or in some cases early intervention, made that referral. The school did the evaluations. And now within that 30 school days, they have to have a team meeting to be able to talk about the results of the evaluation. So that's the main reason to have this team meeting. And then they need to decide whether or not the child needs special education. And if they do, then the school needs to write an IEP, and that has all the services and supports that they're recommending into the IEP. And that all has to be done within 45 school days. And they're also going to be talking about the parent concerns. So I highly recommend, when you go to this team meeting, that you go as prepared as you possibly can. You have a right to ask for the evaluations 2 days before the team meeting. And so you should do that when you request the evaluation, and then a reminder afterwards is always good as well. So you ask for the evaluations 2 days ahead of time. And when you get them, you can read over them to see what they're saying, and to be able to write down questions that you may have. You may want to share it with your pediatrician so that they can help you determine what some of the questions are. And a lot of times I recommend parents, when they go to a team meeting, not to go by yourself. Bring your spouse if that's a possibility, or even just bring a friend. You don't have to bring attorneys, you don't have to bring advocates, but you should maybe go with somebody that can maybe take notes for you, so you can just sit there and talk to the team and ask the questions that you want to ask. But go prepared, and be prepared to discuss your concerns, because one of the things that you write for the IEP is the parent student concern section, and the school is supposed to put that into the IEP the way you want it to be written, and the schools aren't supposed to be able to change that section. So just again, being prepared is I think key of having a really successful team meeting, because if you understand at least some of the information that's in these evaluations, you're going to come and be able to discuss things a little bit more openly, and instead of having things explained throughout the process. So that is really the purpose of the team meeting. And now we're going to talk about, well, I've already actually talked about, preparing for the team meeting. I've already done this. and, request those evaluations. You can invite an advocate if you feel that you want somebody there that way, that's okay too. Sometimes the service providers, and by that I mean the people that did the independent evaluations, would go to the team meeting, and you can invite anybody you want to the team meeting, but you should let the school know that you're doing that. And like I said, have those parent concerns written out for you. Also, if your child is 14 years or older, you can discuss this information with them, and because they're supposed to be invited to the team meeting starting at 14. And, starting at 14, things kind of switch a little bit, and the schools want to hear from the student, the child, more than they do the parents. So, school is responsible for preparing the student to participate in the IEP team meeting. But also, if you want to do that, you can do that as well and talk to your child and prepare them that way. And if you need an interpreter, you should definitely question that ahead of time to make sure that there is an interpreter available, so that you can participate in the team meeting in a meaningful way. Again, and having a child at the team meeting, I want to give a little bit of an example about that, is because when I've been doing this for a long time. My kids were on IEPs when they were little, all the way up to high school. So, and now they're married and have kids of their own. So I've been around the block for a while. And one of the things that I really can't stress enough is the importance of having your child participate in the team meeting. When I was, when it was time for my kids to participate in the team meeting, I didn't think it was that important. And I really kind of regretted it, because having the child participate in the team meeting helps them to learn how to advocate for themselves, because you as the parent aren't always going to be there with them and for them. So it's important to teach them to be able to advocate for themselves, not, asking for help in school, but also asking for help at college, if that's what they decide to do, or at work, if they need some help. Advocating for yourself is a lifelong skill that can help you through all ways of life. And so now we're going to be talking about the actual IEP. So we're going to talk about the contents of the IEP, and then, the parent's response to the IEP. So as I had said, there is a section in the IEP, and this is why you should be prepared to bring this with you, is the parent-student's concern. And that is the section of the IEP that you, the parent, can say what you need to say in it. And, this section can also be used that if, for instance, say you feel that your child is being bullied and the school doesn't think so. This is a place that you can write that you can maybe protect your child a little bit, and say that you're concerned that your child's been bullied and it's not being addressed, and you really feel that it should be. So that is another option, that you can write things like that in the parent-student concerns. And so keep that in mind, that if, especially if you don't feel that the school is responding to the way that you would like, there's something that you can write in the parent concern. There's the section for students' strengths and key evaluation results, and that's a section that all the evaluations should be written in. The vision statement is something, when the child is younger, preschool, elementary school, that the parent writes that vision statement. Oh, I want my child to pass MCAS. I want my child to go to college. But starting at age 14, that's when it's the student's voice now, and the student's voice is what's written in there. So that's what your young person, your child would be writing, what they want to do, if they want to be a doctor or a nurse,
Joanne,
go to college. Yes.
you were doing great with that pacing, so I'm just going to remind you.
Okay. So that's a place to write the student concern at that time once they're 14. And then there's the present levels of performance. That's where the child is now, how they're doing in the different courses that they're supposed to be taking, and then and whether or not the student is going to be able to participate in the general curriculum. So these are all different sections of the IEP. And then there's the section for the other educational needs. So that would be that if they need to have OT, or if they need to have speech and ABA, things like that would be written in that section. And then the goals and objectives section, that would be written as well. There's a service delivery grid, the section that shows, that's the grid that everybody looks at. And that shows, the person that's going to be responsible for providing the services and how often the services are going to be. And then there's also a placement page that the school needs to fill out if your child is not going to be placed in the least well, it's going to be filled out no matter what, but the placement should be the least restricted environment is what they look at first, LRE. And that's the place that your child would normally go to school if they didn't have a disability. So that is the place that you really would want your child to be taught. And then if your child has other needs that they can't take care of that in the least restricted environment, they have to then go to the next placement, which would be like a resource room, so pullouts, things like that. So again, there's all different levels, and we're going to talk about them a little bit further along as well. And on this slide, as a matter of fact, is the picture of the service delivery grid and what that looks like. And this is the section A is the consult section. That's like with the teachers consulting with each other. And even there might be consult with the parent written in that section as well. And then the section B is the related services in the general education placement. So
Iskander, could you please interpret even if there's nobody in the room?
And so the special education in the classroom. So for instance, that would be if you have the ABA is coming into the classroom and providing services that way, or a reading specialist is coming into the classroom to help your child. That's where that would be written. And then section C is the place if they're going to be pulled out at all. So that would be going into the resource room. And so those services would be written there. And as you can see, it talks about, what goal it focuses on. So there's all very details, and it refers back to the goals and objectives that are written for each of those sections, and who will be providing the services as well. So services in the IEP, I'm not going to read every single one of these, but there's so many different services that can be provided for your child in the IEP. Paraprofessionals could be written into the IEP. As I said, resource rooms. Parent training is something that's very overlooked, but could be written in the IEP as well. Extended school day could be written into the IEP, but also extended summer programs could be written into the IEP. After school programs can also be written into the IEP, and any type of assistive technology that your child would need. So assistive technology could be, talk to text, something that reads to your child. It could be a device that the child types into and speaks for them. So the augmentative alternative communication type of assistive technology. So there's a whole host of different services that can be written into the IEP. Some students, some of our kids might need to have a behavior plan. If they have some behaviors that are issues, you might want to have a behavior plan written to help them so they can overcome that, and that they don't, I'm going to use the word, well, I guess I can say don't get in trouble, or don't get accused of bullying somebody if some of their behaviors could be considered bullying behaviors. So that's something that could be a protection for your child. So again, you can think outside the box of whatever's working for your child at home. You can talk to the school to see if they can put that into the IEP. That's what you do at the team meeting. It's a give and take. That's what it's supposed to be. So hopefully it is like that in most cases. So for English language learners, the team must discuss the impact of the student's language as it relates to their education. And, they usually do overlap, and they're usually very closely related. And the team must consider if the primary language of instruction should be a different language other than English for that child to receive a free and appropriate public education. And then also their specific needs and required instructions could be part of an IEP and discussed at the team meeting. And, I love that we have this in here. And then in another case, it's sad that we have to have it in there, is that bilingualism is a strength. And a lot of people don't think of it that way, but it absolutely is a strength to be able to have another language, and that should be embraced, not looked at as a bad thing. And so, I like that it's there, but I hate that it has to be there. So I'm just, there's so much more time to go and we have about 10 more minutes, right? So I'm gonna just keep going until you want me to stop, Roxy, and see if there's any more questions. Well, I think we can make it to the end and then ask some questions. So, but I'm gonna try not to talk fast. Transition requirements. So transition, it's very interesting. We have two different types of transitions that we talk about when we're talking about special education. And the first transition is when your child's turning 3, because IEP services are available for students starting at age 3, and that is the first transition. So we want to make sure, especially if your child is coming from early intervention services, that there's not a delay in services. So you want to make sure the referral for evaluations are made in a timely fashion, and that should be at 2.5 years of age. The referral should be made to the school district, and then the school timeline begins once you sign that paperwork. And the reason why it starts at 2.5 is so that your child has everything in place by their 3rd birthday, and they can pick up in the school district the services that they need. And then the other transition that we're talking about here is transition starting at 14 years of age. And that's the services that your student will get as their to help them with their adult life and getting them prepared for either future education, independent living, or any type of work that they want to do once they leave. And again, as I said earlier, starting at that age 14, that's when the change happens and they're listening to the student more. And although I think they could be doing that from day one, but that's when it's the student's voice that we're hearing from. And there's specific services and instructions that would happen. And it's not necessarily in the school building anymore. It can be outside of the school building at the job site or in a college through like a Macy program, and helping the student to figure out what they might want to do when they leave school. That is what transition at 14 is all about. And the students, as I said, are invited to the team meeting at that time. And we talked about this briefly, about the different type of placements that there are. And the placement is a team decision. And that's one of the things that we really need to remember, and always remember that you're part of that team and your voice should be heard as well. And the team can only consider the unique needs of the child, and not that they don't have a program like that. So for instance, if your child needs to have a one-to-one ABA program and the school does not offer that, they can't say then they can't have that service. It's where can they go to get the service if the team agrees that's what they need. So, it's all, if that's what the student needs to receive a free and appropriate public education. So, and you, of course, as we discussed earlier, want to have an education with the non-disabled peers in the least restricted environment as much as possible. And then there's all other types of placements. There's that full inclusion, the least restricted environment. And as I said, that's the one that is preferred and the one that should be looked at first. And then there's substantially separate programs, and then there's pull-out programs for resource rooms as well. And then there's out-of-district placement. So there's all different types of placement. And when you as the parent, as I said, get to determine and decide if you're going to accept what the services that the school is offering. So you as the parent can fully accept the IEP. So all services begin as they are. You can fully reject the IEP, or you can partially reject the IEP. So one thing I have to say about fully rejecting the IEP is if this is the first IEP, or if this is a new IEP, it might not be a good idea to fully reject it, because then nothing changes or nothing starts until something is accepted. So it's not always a good idea to do that. So the partial rejection in that case is what you should be looking at. You can accept some services to begin and then reject others, or you can accept the services to begin but reject maybe the placement, depending on how you feel about what the school is suggesting. And you can also reject partially the IEP for things that are missing in the IEP. So for instance, if you are at the team meeting and you said, you didn't agree with the school and you'd said, okay, I think he needs 20 hours of ABA a week, but the school was only willing to do 10. But then during the discussion, you were under the impression that they said, okay, we'll go to 20, but they only put 10 in the IEP. You can reject that and say that, it was on your idea, your impression that it was supposed to be 20. And all right, let me rephrase that, because you don't want to reject it if they're not going to get any ABA. You can accept the services, but reject the amount of time and just say that we agreed at the team meeting that it was supposed to be 20, but you only have 10 written in here. And then that needs to be discussed further with the team at another meeting. So these are some options to reject the IEP partially. And I gave some examples already, but this is other examples. But the services continue. If you reject partially or whatever you reject, the old IEP stays in place until things are worked out. That's called stay put. So stay put rights come into effect. You get those services till things are worked out. And by worked out, that means either having another team meeting and discussing it, or you might need to get a new evaluation outside. So you're going to get an outside evaluation to, get some more backup documentation, or you might need some time, but you might need to, at that point, bring an advocate or an attorney into play, all depending on what you feel it would be necessary to get your child for the free and appropriate public education. So again, you can contact Max Helpline for any sample, any letters that we have to partially rejecting it. And as I said, you can get an independent evaluation. For the example, the district decided not to add services that you requested. You can, again, partially reject the IEP. And as I said, reject like the elimination of services, or the fact that they didn't put services that you discussed in the IEP. These are all things that you can reject in part or full. And there's the leaving out. Sorry, I keep forgetting about pressing the button, so I apologize for that. And if you still don't agree with the school, there's other options. There's problem resolution. And what that includes is that you can file a complaint with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's problem resolution system, PRS. You might need to go to mediation. And if you go to mediation, parents do not need to have an advocate or an attorney at mediation. And you can also appeal to the Bureau of Special Education, the Bureau of Special Education Appeals, BSEA. And if you go to BSEA, that's like going to court. So I would only recommend doing that if you have an attorney with you, honestly. You can, again, like I said, call Max Helpline to see if there's anything that we can help you and steer you in the right direction. And sometimes, when you talk to other people who've been there, done that, you might realize that, oh, before I need an attorney, I need to get this outside evaluation first. So it might be that some of our recommendation is, just to slow down, coming from me, to slow down and take a deep breath and do some different things other than running out to hire an attorney or an advocate. You might need to do that a little later, but that might not be the first step that you need to take. And the rest of the slides are some resources. And as I said, I will send these slides to Roxy and she can send them to the group. I'm assuming you can, Roxy. I shouldn't put words in your mouth, but I'm assuming you can do that.
You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, so I will do that. So I guess, the next minute or two, we can answer some questions if you still feel we have time to do that.
Absolutely. If you don't mind, we
I don't
appreciate it,
mind.
because thank you. I'm going to start with a couple of items that were in the chat. One is asking if requesting a 504 plan for a student, is a doctor's letter needed? I was informed it would make the process faster, but is it required, a doctor's letter?
Well, the interesting thing is, the way that question is written is, I guess I'm a little confused, because what I would recommend is I would recommend them asking for evaluations, not just for a 504 plan. I would recommend asking for the evaluations to be done, and then the team determines whether they need that IEP or they need the 504 plan. So, so you do not need a doctor's note for that. You can ask as a parent, but I would go that route instead of just saying, a 504 plan unless it's just like an accommodation because a child has a broken leg or something. But it's unclear with that question.
And we'll see if anything additional is added. Another question is, can my son have a different evaluation? Not only what the school said, can I ask my son's doctor to do a separate or independent evaluation?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you can even ask the school to do other evaluations as well. The way I understand the law is written is that if a parent requests an evaluation from the school then needs to provide that evaluation. Now, if the school, say for instance, you want your child to have a neuropsych eval, okay? And so that's not an evaluation the schools usually do, but the school is supposed to evaluate the child in all areas of suspected need. So that would be an evaluation that can be done by the school. If they don't have a neuropsych evaluator, then they could pay for one outside. And you can always get an evaluation anytime you want, out of your own pocket or through your insurance.
Thank you. And Tammy, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi,
Go
I
ahead,
have a
Tammy.
question. Hi. My son, he just started high school, and last year we had an IEP scheduled. It was rescheduled, never rescheduled. He started a new year. They did send an IEP that I'm supposed to sign, but I didn't really have a meeting. Now he's in a new school, and I haven't been able to contact anybody over there. Once I do get in touch with somebody, am I entitled to still meet? I mean, I don't know what the process is now that it's a new school year and a new school and everything.
Yeah, you should be having meetings yearly with the team, at
Yeah,
least yearly.
yeah.
And so if they haven't met with you, you could put it in writing and request the evaluation. And I would highly recommend requesting everything in writing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so yes, you can absolutely do that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. And please feel free to raise your hand if there are any other questions anyone may have. Or if for some reason I skipped seeing your question in the chat, knowing that our interpreters are scheduled to 8:30, it's 8:31, but I just wanted to make sure if anyone had a question that they didn't get answered, you get the opportunity to have that. iPhone 13, go for it. You should be seeing a request asking you to unmute. While you work on that, I'll also unmute Lisa Jean in the meantime. Okay. iPhone
Hello?
13, you're unmuted.
Thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. What's your question?
So my question is, so my daughter has an IDP in her school, but I feel that I'm not being kind of communicator on her progress. And I feel that some of the information that on the IDP plan is just kind of lost. That's pretty much my questions. And other thing, you're trying to reach out to the specialists, and sometimes they don't get back to you. The majority of the times, technically.
Yeah, again, if gets to be more personal, you can reach out to the school separately. But one thing that came to mind with the question that you had is that, and I don't know if you're receiving them, but you're supposed to be getting progress reports, and you're supposed to be receiving progress reports on your child as often as the kids get report cards. So that's like 3 or 4 times a year, depending on the school district. So you should be getting that. And if you want an update, you can ask for a team meeting at any time and ask to meet with the team to get an update if you feel that you're not receiving one. And as Roxy had said before, I don't know the age of your child. Well, maybe I missed it, but you can ask for communication in a communication book back and forth to get more information as well.
Thank you. And I will say that unfortunately some of our interpreters do have to leave, but if you have a question, please let the interpreter know and we can follow up. Any interpreters who can stay, please know you will be paid for your time. The admins are on and know those who can stay are still working. So I just want to throw that into space, knowing that some others have obligations. but there may be some that can stay. So Rita, I've seen you in the chat saying you have a question, so I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hello.
Go ahead, Sarita.
Hi. I have a question about my son's IEP. So he's been on this IEP since he was 3 years old. He is 6 now, and I just feel like his IEP is not being met. There are things in there. He is his food is supposed to be warmed every day. That's not getting done. I feel like when these kids are, especially the children that have disabilities that are brought into new classrooms, these teachers should actually go through their file to get an understanding of this child or what that child may need. That becomes a conflict when I have to myself let these teachers know, hey, there's a doctor's order, his food needs to be warmed. You guys should be encouraging him to eat during lunchtime. My son comes home sometime, his food, I would send him with 14 French fries to school every day. My son's coming back with 12 French fries, you know, so that means he only ate 2 French fries throughout the duration of lunch. You know, I've had these meetings, I've repeated myself over and over again. I just feel like nothing's being done, you know, all the way around, you know, even involving his transportation. And I just got out of the room with them as well, speaking about that. You know, what do you do when the IEP to your child is not being met? Who do you contact? What is it that you do? Even requesting meetings, that doesn't help because it's written in black and white, and it's just not getting done, you know?
Yeah. So if requesting a meeting and nobody's responding, you know, you can file a complaint with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, as I said, with the PRS, and their contact information was back here somewhere. No, actually, I don't know if their contact information is there, but there we go. No, I guess not.
We'll have it up, Joanne, we'll have the contact information for PRS also, and the slides you show on the website so that they can reach out.
Okay, yeah,
So
that's
please go
good.
ahead.
Yeah, so that's perfect. Yeah, so you can reach out to PRS and DESE and file a complaint that way. You could also, you know, contact, you know, the PAC and talk to them further, or Matt's helpline, and see, and we could give you more personal advice of what to do with things like that. But you might need to get an outside evaluation to help support your concerns. So again, there's different things that can be done.
Okay, yeah, I mean, he's had an outside evaluation, you know, and those documents actually.
So Rita, I'm just going to have to interrupt because it's 8:37.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. But I want you to look at those resources we are going to post. I want everyone to please note that Mary Marcella has put in also the contact information for some of the ADs and the Office of Special Ed also. So some of the child-specific questions, if you don't know who your assistant director is in the Office of Special Ed, any of them would be able to look it up for you based on your school. So that is some additional information that you can follow up with. I don't want you to think if you don't get your child-specific answer here, then that's the end of it. We can definitely follow up the Office of Special Ed and reach out to SpEdPAC if you're not getting any feedback. Lisa Jean, you have your hand up.
Hello, I was just curious about your organization. A lot of your examples were about people choosing ABA in one form or another. If a parent comes to you and says, I don't want to choose ABA for my child, but I'm not sure what, you know, resources to pick. You know, I've heard about the neurodiversity movement and I just like some guidance and some help on that. Do you have any people in your organization that help parents with a request like that?
So yeah, well, I can't say that most, but there are people on a helpline that can help answer that question, those questions, yes. I'm not saying that I don't have a child with autism, so I'm not, you know, I couldn't really speak to some of the other types of treatments for autism, but there are many. And yes, I'm very aware that some families don't want ABA, and there are other options that are available. So yes, you can request the options that work for your child. And if the school can't provide it, or they don't have somebody to provide it, and it's agreed upon that, like, you know, you're saying ABA might not work for your child and they need another type of treatment, then that's something that you can work on with the school department to be able to get written into the IEP.
Thank you. Mrs. P, I am asking you to unmute if you have your question.
Thank you. Hi. Yes, I just wanted to know, how do you get some guidance on choosing a school for your for middle schoolers, so that you can. I'm looking at some of the tiers for the gradings on the ratings on the school, and some of them are not so great. So
Yeah, I would defer that to Roxy to be able to answer that question.
So honestly, that is a BPS question. And if you want my personal family opinion, that's a longer conversation. If you email Boston SpEdPAC 411@gmail.com, we can definitely talk about it, because you're correct. There are many schools that are low tiered and aren't considered high performing, but you have to make a choice. Every address is supposed to have access to at least one high performing school choice also. But we can definitely talk about what choices you have. The other component is that when placing, the Office of Special Ed does make a determination also with where your child's been placed based on needs too. So it's a multi-layered question that if you reach out, we can definitely talk more about, especially if there's a particular school you're looking at and you feel like you can't get into. But it's a hard choice. We have to look at the choices and kind of figure out what will work best for our families.
Right.
But definitely feel free to reach out.
Okay, can you put your info in the chat, please?
Yes, I will. Thank you. Cheryl. Cheryl? Asking to unmute.
Okay. So, I'm sorry. My question is, when I said in the breakout room before, like when you call the transport in the morning, like when they don't come and I call them and they tell me they take forever to answer, then they said they don't have a backup bus. I work for Boston Public School and I have to call my supervisor after hours to tell her I'm coming in late because I have to take my grandson to school. It's not easy for me. It's hard for me. I'm a single mother taking care of these two kids. It's not my kid, they're my grandkids, but I get custody of them. And it's extremely, extremely hard for me. So right now, it's too hard for me. I call a and convene to go over the IEP again, to point out to the Sarah Greenwood what is on the IEP that he needs a bus to and from school in the daytime. So that's my question.
Is the bus written in the IEP?
Yes, it is written in.
And he's not it's not coming.
It's not been covered.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had the same issue last year, and I was hoping and praying that it would be fixed this year, and it's worse this year.
Yeah. Again, you could file a complaint with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education about that, but they also did have the person from, transportation here, then they're willing to listen to parents. So that might be another option as well. But since it's been an ongoing issue for the past couple of years, it might be worth, doing a complaint with DESE to see if that helps. I don't know,
When you email them, they never answer your emails. They don't answer your emails.
So from the systemic improvement plan, the district is being monitored on responding to families. Mm-hmm. So the reason that ticket system that transportation uses, we're going to presume no one's going in editing and deleting when families call. We're going to presume the ticket system is working. There should be a record that if you have called multiple times, so that provides the record of that there's a continued problems with transportation. I really think because anytime it's a door-to-door, it's in the IEP, I really feel like along with the assistant director for your school, along with transportation, they need to be talking, because if you can't, yes, you could be reimbursed if you were able to do lifts or other options, but that may not be an option for you. So you really want to be working directly with the school and constantly notifying them, because if our children can't start the day right, they can't access the curriculum because they're dysregulated from the jump off.
I know. And then the thing is that most of the time, the teacher have to be helping me to take him home. Because, sometimes I have to beg my boss for hours to please, just
we have, Shira, I get it. We have families that are losing their jobs over transportation. Yes. So we do completely understand that. And that's why you can file a complaint with the state, because if they're not picking up your child at all. But we want you to exhaust working with transportation, working with the Office of Special Ed, because it's in their IEP. So it's part of that. And then we go from there. But yes, we know how important this is. We're going to continue to bring transportation back because it's definitely impacting families in a very negative way and hurting their whole livelihood, no family. So thank you for sharing your experience too. Linda. Linda? Okay, Linda, you should be seeing a prompt to unmute. I'm going to move on to Liza if you're not there right now. Liza, I'm also asking you to unmute.
Hi. Well, I got a lot of help from somebody, co-host, and I really appreciate it. But I can relate with everything everybody was saying. My daughter has an IEP, and one big issue is I fought so hard to get her where her bus stop needed to be, and then they just changed it on me. And then I reached out to them and let them know, and all they keep telling me is to fill out a bus stop change form or whatever. And it just, I don't know why they changed it. Why did they change it? Why didn't they just leave it where it was at? You know what I'm saying? Does anybody know?
Only transportation is going to know that.
Okay, so that's the problem. Transportation, I'm sorry, they're not helpful at all. I do the portal, I call them, I do the email. A lot of the customer service agents, I believe, I'm not sure that's what they're called. They never know. They hardly know anything. A lot of the questions I ask, they just say, I don't know. I say, can you please find out? I always ask if I can get the head of the department to contact me. What is her name, by the way? She has a very unique name. I can never remember it.
Right, she was the one that was on the call today, Delavern Strauss. I'll throw her name in the chat.
Please, yes. I've spoken with her before, and this was like 2 years ago. And they never want to give me her name. I don't know why. Anyhow, so that's an issue. And there's many issues with this. Communication with my daughter's school is just not there.
So Liza, I would recommend that you utilize some of the resources that Joanne showed us today, and then we're going to post on the website if you didn't get a chance to write them down.
Yeah, there's a lot I don't know. So the person I spoke with was very helpful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And Jessie.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of on the last two. So our daughter isn't even 4 years old yet. And when she was transitioned, the system, they wouldn't even do a meeting until less than 30 days before her 3rd birthday. And then the school we were offered, we live in Roslindale, and we were told it was going to be in our catchment area, and it was not. We were offered Josiah Quincy, and we were really concerned about the distance. But after we went and visited the school, we loved, everything seemed great. We loved the teacher, but we were still concerned about transportation. And we were told, it's 35 minutes driving with regular Boston traffic, not rush hour traffic. And we were told, don't worry, she's got a bus in her IEP, door to door. It's fine. She'll have transportation. We're having the same problems. I mean, I listened to the parents in the transportation group. We're having all the same problems. I've spoken, my husband spoke to Delavern today, but it took her, we emailed them on the 12th. My daughter on her first day of school did not have transportation to bring her home. 3 out of the 9 days she's been in school, she has not had afternoon transportation. And I don't know, one of the coordinators at her school said, would it make sense to maybe move her to a school that's closer to your home? And moving my child out of a school where she's thriving is not the option. That's not what we need to do. And I don't know what else we can, we were hesitant to go to this school, but BPS, the system people placing us told us that it would be, that we wouldn't have to worry about the transportation. And now, I mean, I missed 2 hours of work today to go and get her from school. my husband and I over the last 2 weeks have missed 10 hours of work trying to transport our daughter to and from, or dealing with phone calls with transportation. We emailed Delavern on Monday, and today was the first day we got a call back because my husband wrote scathing emails demanding that she call us by the end of the day. And then she didn't offer any solutions. So I know you keep asking people to go and talk to transportation, but I'm talking to the head of transportation and nothing is happening. There needs to be somewhere else that we can go, someone higher up than her who can make a decision or who can work to get this fixed. And I'm sure so many of these parents on the call who were, there were at least 30 people in the call for the transportation breakout room. There has to be another option. It can't just be the ADs and getting to the director of transportation. There has to be someone else who can be held accountable and who can make decisions on how to fix this.
So Roxy, because I know transportation was part of the plan as well. Isn't that correct? The issues with
so Delavern is who she's referring to. That is the transportation director that has not been able to. Oh, go ahead.
No, I know that, but the plan because of that they made with Desi, right? It was transportation part of that
plan. Yes, that
Yeah.
is part of it. Part of the MOU is transportation and busing.
So I guess my question is, so is there a way for now where they're working on this MOU? Is there a different avenue for people to complain then? I don't know. I'm asking because I don't know.
So they had to have a ticket system. It was one of the plans to keep track of it, so accurate data. So the data is all these families who are showing that, and they're speaking it here, but they also, the goal is to have it documented so that it can be shown that children are not being picked up. As we've talked about, some families have literally lost their jobs because they had to pick up their child and they didn't want their child suffering by sitting in a school building for 2 to 3 hours extra. So, yeah, so it's really bringing the issue, but at the end of the day, between transportation and when it's in the IEP, especially our door-to-door students, we asked the Office of Special Ed to also support because that's part of the IEP, to be quite clear. And then, if it's a consistent problem, we do actually say file a problem resolution system complaint. Because you're right, there comes a point in time where you say you're hiring, but we're working on hiring. Look, I'm one of those people that my kid is afternoon bus just about every other day. I get a text, the buses are coming. But it's one of those things where you have to document, and some families are willing to file the complaint, but we have to keep pushing the issue because of the fact that yes, there's some people they're hiring, but in the meantime, our children can't get FAPE if they can't get to school or they can't leave school or don't want to go to school because they have to sit in the office for 2 and 3 hours after school.
So I think you're right. I am a true believer in trying to work things out as much as possible with amongst ourselves, so there's not having to have a third party type of thing. But maybe the answer is, even though they're in this MOU, and maybe they do need to file a complaint, like you said, because that's going to be the record as well.
I think there needs to be a record because let's be clear, when transportation or BPS, and I love BPS for BPS families, okay? But at the end of the day, when they go to school committee and say we have 96% on time, the average person hearing that thinks our children are getting to school. I can't believe all these people I hear from all the time are in the 0.06%. There's too many people saying that children aren't getting to school and aren't getting home from school. So, we recommend and we encourage families, speak your truth also at school committee and document it so that there is a record so that people start to question when they hear 97% on time, because there's multiple ADs on this call, but you're right, there's only so much they can do. They're not driving the buses, they're not doing the hiring for the transit station. They can call and support that way, but we also need to make sure we're pushing forth because you can't get FAPE if your child can't get to school and if you can't get home from school either.
Yeah, no, true.
And I think I know Mac has had questions through the Mac line just from talking with Jakira about transportation challenges also. Yeah. So it may be something that is where advocacy-wise in Boston and the state that we're really pushing because it's clear from these conversations our families need help. You know, as SpEdPAC members, we're all family parent volunteers, and we're having the same crisis, and we're trying to connect to people. But you're right, we had a transportation director on call today, and from what people are saying, they're like, I still have the same problem.
Yeah, no. And yeah, and I mean, you know, at some point, yeah, you feel bad that they can't hire people because there's nobody that, you know, is applying for the jobs, but you know, they still need to get the kids to school, you know, so yeah.
So
Jesse,
yeah, I just wanted to say, like, I understand what you're saying, Joanne, about trying to work within the system, but I mean, we are, like Roxy was saying, we are putting the complaints in, like, on the transportation line and putting them there and having them on record. That's fine, whatever. The state can look up the record. I don't care if it's on record. I just want a resolution. I just want to know that my kid is going to be able to come home from school. My 3.5-year-old would have been at school until 6:30 at night on her first day of school, because the transportation company called us at 6:34 p.m. to see if our daughter had made it home or if she was still waiting for a ride.
Oh my gosh.
That is unacceptable.
No,
It was
absolutely.
her first day of school. And we had this issue last year that she was only in school for half the year because of her transition. But once we started having to go in, it was like every 10 days, she didn't have a driver. When we would pick her up, then she would cry the next 2 or 3 days getting on the bus because she thought mom or dad was coming to pick her up. And we were really hoping to not have that. And it's already starting again.
Right.
No. And also, excuse me, this is her husband who has been filing the complaints. It's not just with the transportation company. I've been filing complaints. I've been filing complaints with the superintendent's office. I was able to obtain the email and phone number of the interim special education
Lauren's out here. Yeah.
Her. Then I got connected with the head of the Boston Transportation, my complaints, I feel like, have gone on deaf ears because she was giving me the runaround today on the phone call, just giving me excuses when I asked for a solution. So where do we go when our complaints aren't being addressed?
And filing a complaint with DESE, like, I saw the comment here, and filing a complaint with DESE is fine as well, so that it's on the record again, but that doesn't fix the problem. And I think that's all most of us care about here. I don't care that it's on record somewhere. I just want the problem to be addressed. And it doesn't seem like anybody at transportation wants to address the problem.
Yeah, we don't have the answer tonight. I want to be honest, especially our door-to-door children in particular. I think, it's a process to get door-to-door, and our door-to-door children are the most vulnerable, honestly, because they have to be dropped at the house for various specific reasons. And we've talked to transportation about, is there a way to prioritize even those buses with the hiring and things? And so, as parents, as family members, we're advocating, we're asking, we're talking to anyone who will listen, but you're right. We don't have the answer. We're not receiving the resolution, at least in Boston. It's like, how do we get our kids to school and get home from school safely in a timely manner so that they're not completely dysregulated, but then we don't have more behaviors? And I don't have the answer, honestly. It's something that we continue to push for because it's not fair to our children.
Right. No, absolutely. And I wish I had an answer, but I mean, yeah, I just don't. And it's such a huge task to get this done. And I don't know what the right answer is. And I'm sorry.
And Joanne, I don't know if maybe when you go back to MAC as a team, as a MAC team, you guys could even discuss how, perhaps, because I think a lot of our special ed BPS families are saying this is a real challenge for us. Can an organization like Mass Advocates for Children maybe put your heads together and see, is there a way you can help or engage with BPS so that we can get our children to school? I mean, I want to acknowledge that it's 9 o'clock and Joanne has been very generous with her time. And it's the thing of we're trying to find solutions, because you're right, at the end of the day, no one wakes up and go, I want to complain. We want our children to learn, go to school, to learn.
Exactly.
So, and we have a lot of, like I said, we have a lot of special ed leaders. We had transportation on here, and I think we're going to save the chat. And I want I'll share them because I think this is very important. And it's shown us that transportation needs their own meeting too, because there are so many questions and concerns. So I definitely think not to say that we expect you to have the answer, but I think an agency like even MAC, because they do have MAC advocates statewide also along with locally. So perhaps this is something that you may be able to help Boston families with too.
Yeah, I can say that I will bring it back to our group, and I believe Jakira is still on the call, and we can talk about this at work. Absolutely happy to do that. Another thing too, and I don't know if anybody's done this, is maybe call your legislator and see if they have any pull. They know what's going on in Boston. They know about the MOUs. They know, they did the MOUs and everybody agreed to that, to stay out of receivership. And so, maybe bringing in a legislator or so might be another answer or suggestion.
Thank you. No, thank you. We really appreciate everyone's time, from all the assistant directors from the Office of Special Ed, our family engagement specialist, Yashi, our interpreters, the ones that let to leave at 8:30 and the ones who are able to stay on to help our families. We value everyone's time and really just want to work together to resolve these problems for our children. So thank you, everyone. We will post the recording and the slides on our website within the next week, so that if there's information you're like, I need to hear that again, that will be available for you. And also you'll see the pages where Johanne has graciously prepared those slides that have resources and other advocacy agencies, including Max Helpline, that you can get some additional support from. So as I said, please feel free to reach out to SpEdPAC if there's other topics you want us to have meetings on, or people you want us to bring in for meetings moving forward. Just reach out and let us know. So thank you all, and I hope you have a good night.
Thank you for having me. Have a good night, everybody.